Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on November the 14th in the year of our Lord 2025. And as usual, I got a lot of great information for you. Let me just go ahead and click over here, Murtech on Rumble. This is the video we're watching tonight, episode 1746. It says upcoming, but as you know, you're actually watching it right now. So, hi Debbie BS. Let me go ahead and close that out and slide down here and open the show more description box by expanding that out. We have information from ACLJ Sekulow, American Center for Law and Justice, Awaken with JP, Benny Johnson, and Devory Darkins. But before we get into that, let me give a shout out here to Disco41, I guess, just started following my channel. Metro Boom Horror just started following my channel. Lamb Stewie just started following my channel. CalGal66 just started following my channel. Teresa Inez just started following my channel, and SKW54 just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1745, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 530A. Sunny Bunny commented on my extra 530B. Viper Senior commented on my episode 1745. JBC 2020 commented on my extra 510C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 530B and 530C, and so did Uncloudy. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I certainly appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. There we go. Fantastic. Okay. There we have it. Sorry the screen didn't change. Let's come over here and ACLJ Sekulow. AOC calls for action to unseat Democrats. Sounds like quite a radical there. Let's take a listen and see what that's all about.
The shutdown is over. It happened late last night. President Trump from the Oval Office signed it, said it was time for this to all be over. There was applause. There was a lot of conversation that led into it, saying none of this really had to happen. But of course, here we are. It is over. I think this is a good day for America in that sense. However, it's not a good day, it feels like, for the Democrats, as the far left groups, the AOCs, the squads, are saying, we cannot believe this shutdown is over. You know, they called for the shutdown to end, and then when the shutdown got too close to ending, they go, how dare you? So much so they are calling to primary their own party members who decided to very lightly cave, if you will.
Should you mention or stay as minority leader?
I think what is so important for folks to understand is that this problem is bigger than one person, and it actually is bigger than the minority leader in the Senate. A leader is a reflection of the party. And Senate Democrats have selected their leadership to represent them. And so the question needs to be bigger than just one person. We have several Senate primaries this cycle. I know I'm being asked about New York. That is years from now. I have to remind my own constituents because they think that this election is this year. We actually do have Senate elections this year. And my hope is that people across this country actually participate in their primary elections in selecting their leadership. Thank you.
You didn't really answer the question.
Very direct, to be honest, saying, you know, there are a lot of different primaries this cycle, and we need to start looking at who can go. I mean, that is pretty wild that is coming from a pretty major leader in the party calling for this. And Jordan, we know historically, in terms of, you can maybe break it even down even from a political point of view, the idea of unseating someone who has been there for a while, it is always a gigantic uphill battle.
It is, unless, and it's still an uphill battle, but you've got this whole new movement. I mean, the fact that a 34, I think, turning 35, Mamdani in New York took out Cuomo, who was very close early on. He was leading way ahead, had lots of money, and kind of Republicans and Democrats were okay with him if you live in New York City. And then he just does this blowout win. So she's saying, well, hey, if you can do that, if you can take on dynasties in states like New York, we can take on, some senators who have made it, who were.
Yeah, they can do the reverse of MAGA in their own party.
Will has the names too of the ones that actually voted to reopen who are up for reelection.
Well, and it's interesting because what they did here very specifically. Dick Durbin and Jeanne Shaheen are the only two that voted for it to reopen in the Senate. They're both retiring. So that's going to be a primary to see who will be that incumbent replacement. They were very strategic with that, knowing they would get the ire from the AOCs. But there's 13 Democrats up for re-election. I think what she's banking on is that if you can not flip the seat, but instead flip who the incumbent will be, then you can take out the leadership because the progressives of the party are not happy.
It's wonderful because in midterm elections, when you have the White House, the House, and the Senate, traditionally that midterm, you lose one of those. Not necessarily both, but one. And it's been mostly focused on the House. The Senate's looking pretty good for Republicans. So maybe that's why AOC says this is the time to take the risk. But if you can create inter-Democrat fighting at the statewide level, that filters down to those House races in the key states that they're trying to win, to flip, because then you've got half that candidate's supporters saying, I'm against the current senator, I want the radical. And then the other, so what is that local, the one running for House of Representatives, do they have to figure out if they're going to endorse the challenger to an incumbent senator? It could be a mess for Democrats, but I think what AOC is, she's making the long-term play to take the party the way of her and Mamdani.
When you think about this and the repercussions of it, one, it shows that it was the Democrats themselves that wanted to keep the government shut down. They wanted this suffering and pain on the American people, the military not getting paid, the food stamp benefits, the SNAP program not going out, and all of the things that come with that, the airline, the air traffic controller crisis that we are facing. They wanted to continue that, and their option now is not to say, let's try to make things better, let's try to legislate, let's try to find compromise. Instead, it's let's get rid of our leaders in the Senate and go a different path forward where we can just do whatever we want and take over. Yeah. They would still have the government shut down if it were up to them.
Yes, I mean, I think that's what people need to understand is that the SNAP program, you wouldn't be getting your benefits. The federal employees would miss more paychecks. The FAA would have been a disaster during Thanksgiving. It's now looks like it will ramp up so where it'll at least be status quo on Thanksgiving, which isn't always the easiest time, but better than them canceling, 20% of flights or even booking flights saying you might show up, but you don't even go. And Logan, you've even had experience with that this week coming up. So I just think that when you combine all of this, you say, and we talked about it, they got nothing from this except for some agreements on some votes that they're not going to win. It's very, I think for the American people, they may have tried to, they've hurt the economy. So, and if that does hurt President Trump, that hurts Republicans, but they own this, and the kind of the AOCs of the world and all of them coming out and saying that helps us when we say it, because the base of the Democrats are saying, no, we got nothing at all.
All right, yeah, and I want to bring in Mark Kelly here from the ACLJ in Washington, D.C. Obviously, a big moment for everyone, but I'm sure things are changing there drastically. I'll kick over to Will, and then I'll just take the reins.
Last night we saw a memo go out from the White House, from the OMB, that said, hey, tomorrow, November 13th, which is now today, start reopening the government. Everyone needs to go back to work. Obviously, some of these departments and agencies will take some time to, catch up on back work and get to where they are. But what does it look like for the government reopening right now?
Yes, I think what you're seeing is people coming back to work. It was interesting that memo went out last night at about 10:30. And so I imagine some workers woke up this morning to the news that they were going back to work. But they're going to come in, and as I said yesterday, I think on the show, 75% of workers were already working. So there's going to be back work for those who were not in the office, but they're going to get back up to speed shortly. I saw news today that about Sunday, they believe the paychecks will start going out, and those will be completed by Wednesday. So those who are working without pay, those who are furloughed, will all be paid. And you're going to see things go back to work. I think the FAA has said that it's going to take about a week to get back to normal. And so hopefully by next weekend, when people start traveling for Thanksgiving, that the airports won't be seeing the delays and the cancellations that they were this past week.
I think what's also fascinating is you're starting to see the infighting break out among the Democrats on the Hill. I know you've spent a lot of time as a Hill staffer working in various positions and high levels on the Hill. What do you make of this, what we're seeing now? Is this just reactionary, wanting to get their TV time, wanting to show that they are the leader of the party? Or do you think this does real damage to their party going forward, the way that we're seeing the AOC types speak out and say, hey, we got to get rid of our leadership. They failed us here by failing to keep the government closed?
That's an interesting question, and I guess we'll see it play out as we go forward. I mean, the polls did indicate the Democrats were faring a little bit better in the shutdown with the public, but we don't know what that means long term. And I think there were some adults in the room, so to speak, in D.C. who said, this has gone on long enough. There's starting to be real pain with the SNAP program. There's starting to be real pain at the airports. The federal workers aren't being employed are paid, I should say. So, they're going to see how this plays out long term. I think Chuck Schumer knew that there were members of his caucus that wanted to negotiate a deal to end this. You had people like Tim Kaine, who has a high percentage of federal workers in Virginia. And you have people like Mark Warner, who voted against the deal. But I think he was probably in the kind of hope no or hope yes, vote no category. Mark Warner's on the ballot in 2026, and he didn't want to draw a primary opponent. And that's a real risk right now when you have people like AOC and Bernie Sanders out there saying they're going to recruit Mamdani-like candidates to run against them.
I think we should play this from Senator John Fetterman, who had been consistently for reopening the government. He said something to the effect of, it used to be a part of our party platform that we have to keep the government open. But he is also criticizing the party, but for a different reason than AOC. Let's go ahead and roll bite one from Senator John Fetterman on CBS.
I would like to take the opportunity to remind, I vote a 91% Democratic line. And if Democrats have a problem with somebody that votes 91% of the same times as you are, more than 9 out of 10 times, then maybe our party has a bigger problem, and maybe it's not the big tent party that people need and we want to have to win that moving forward for that.
So what you start to see here, Jordan, is cracks in their base.
91% is not good enough for this.
Right, that's a moderate now. I mean, if you're 91% of the time in line with your party.
Conservatives, you want your people elected to vote 100%. But strategically, you look in states that are tougher to win.
It's not realistic.
Susan Collins, people like that. Better to have them than somebody who's on the left, who's not going to vote with you 90% of the time, but is going to vote against you 95 or 98% of the time. But the fact is, I don't think 91% is good enough for the left anymore.
Well, and if you probably look at those votes, if it's 91% of the time, it's probably Israel and the government shutdown are the two things he voted against his party on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in reality, the 91% figure is all of the Democrat ideology and policy perspective that he's voting with.
They tried to say he's lost his mind because he's a Jewish senator who supports Israel and wanted to keep the government open, and he's lost his mind. Before, and the Democrats have said that, and before they played down and said, no, he's fine to be in the Senate. So it's so interesting how that
all switched completely. It went from, he was perfectly fine when he was clearly struggling and having a lot of issues early on. He's gotten better.
Many of us would have
they ignored that. But as soon as he started to have any kind of leanings that would be not right in line with the far, far left of the party, he now was the enemy.
Right. You support Israel. Something's got to be wrong with him.
Yeah.
All right. There you have it, folks. That's the Democrat Party. It's all or nothing for them. Okay, let's jump over here, click the Rumble link, and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. I'm giving them a thumbs up. I'm following the channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and scroll down and see what Awaken with JP has to say. He's going to do his news update. They should have tried harder to cover this up. His We Lie to You news segment. So let's take a listen to this. And he's going to use some satire and sarcasm to mock the mainstream media. So let's see what that's all about.
Excellent. Welcome to We Lied to You News. We have a pipe bombshell of a report about January 6th. Ever hear of it? There are major implications of authorities being involved in domestic terrorism and an attempt to cover it up. Let's get into it. On January 6th, there was a pipe bomber who, golly, we just haven't been able to find until now. A woman who was a Capitol police officer at the time came back as a forensic match to the pipe bomber, according to a shocking report published by The Blaze. The alleged suspect is Shani Kirchhoff, who has since left the Capitol Police to work for the CIA. Which seems pretty fitting, all things considered. It's also alleged that once the FBI got too close to finding her in their investigation, they were called off. Later on January 6th, Shani, whatever her name is, was reportedly one of the first to start taking headshots at people in the January 6th crowd with rubber bullets, which is something you're not supposed to do. But a retired Army Special Forces operative says, if you really want to start a riot, shoot them in the head. And that's what she did. Now, what are called reality theorists say this looks like further evidence that January 6th was orchestrated to sort of look like an insurrection, and this was part of the orchestration. And they tried to cover it up. But the 274 plainclothes FBI agents in the crowd that day have said there was no cover-up, and of course, I believe them. Here's what Congressman Thomas Massie says about the Capitol policewoman being discovered as the pipe bomber. This is the biggest scandal in my lifetime. Steve Baker did what an $11 billion agency, the FBI, could not do, or worse yet, covered up. He identified the January 6th bomber, and she wasn't working alone. Well, Congressman, if I had to bet, I think it's safe to say that the FBI will conclude she was working alone. Most criminals are these days. Thomas Massie goes on to say, FBI, CIA, and Capitol Hill Police Department are implicated in this story. Okay, let me correct myself. I would bet the FBI, CIA, and Capitol Police will all conclude she was working alone, which will be even more conclusive. It's crazy that some people think there was some kind of devious orchestration going on here. Accordingly, 2 BBC bosses have resigned in disgrace for being caught intentionally editing videos from January 6th to make Trump look like he was calling for an insurrection. Here's a clip of the doctored BBC footage. Take a look.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell.
Sure sounds like a call for an insurrection to me. And here's the original unedited clip. Take a look.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
I don't know. Is there any difference? President Trump thinks so, as he said he'll sue the BBC for over $1 billion unless they retract and apologize for the false and defamatory actions. But we can assure you the BBC is still a very credible news organization. Just take a look at this.
Now, transgender woman's milk is just as good for babies as breast milk.
It's fine, honest reporting by the BBC right there. In other news, the civil war between the pro-Israel conservatives, like Ben Shapiro, and the we've got some questions about the Israeli government conservatives, like Tucker Carlson, continues. Interestingly, a poll on some redheaded idiot's YouTube channel asked the audience simply, who do you trust more, Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson? As you can see, with 30,000 people weighing in, 23 came back in answering Ben Shapiro, and 77 came in as not being smart enough to know the right answer, according to Ben Shapiro. Looks like Mark Levin is gonna need to get angrier and yell louder to more effectively communicate and change people's minds, and make some more intelligent statements like this.
You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
Well, say more. I appreciate the nuance, Mark.
We've got to take care of business. We can fight the enemy on the other side. But the problem is, the more daunting problem, the more complicated problem is when they're in our house.
People do like to be screeched at with emotional hysteria. And in other news, congrats to Nancy Pelosi for her rather impressive stats she's accumulated. With her stock market trading sorcery, she has seen a nearly 17,000% return on her stock market investments, with a profit of $133 million. Truly Michael Jordan type stats if Michael Jordan was 10 times better at basketball. Now, some have unfairly accused Nancy P of what's called insider trading. But as Nance has announced she won't be running for re-election in 2026, once she's out of office, you can assume she'll still be putting up these same world-leading stock market stats, and therefore prove her critics wrong. That's it for today's news. Oh, and if you've been looking forward to the next Olympics, they'll have a bit of a twist, as only women will be allowed to compete in the women's category. This announcement comes from the Olympic Committee as they found scientific evidence of advantages to being born male. Truly some revolutionary science they've just discovered. Good night.
All right, there you have it, folks. Oh, he definitely knows how to play like the mainstream media. All right, let's click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Awaken with JP. I'm following the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. And that last segment there with Mark Levin, I used to listen to Mark Levin, I mean, like on the way home from work and when I was traveling around in the early evenings. I mean, Rush Limbaugh, WIBC radio here in Indianapolis, Rush Limbaugh would come on at noon. And then Sean Hannity at 3. And Mark Levin then would come on at 6, I believe. 6 or 7. And I used to like to listen to Mark Levin until Donald Trump became president in 2016 and started putting tariffs on some of these other countries that were tariffing our products going into their country. I mean, he started doing this in 2017, Donald Trump did, when he first took office. Man, Mark Levin ripped his ass up one side and down the other. Well, if you're going to tariff this, why not just tariff everything? So, I don't know about Mark Levin. He talks a good game, but sometimes he doesn't. And I've found more times than not, he just screams and hollers. All right, let's jump back here. That's just my opinion. If you like him, that's fine. I just don't care for his style. Okay, let's see what Benny Johnson has to say regarding Dan Bongino finally breaks silence on January 6th Pipebomber. Here we go.
No one's done more to expose the deep state than me. I'm not going to allow you to be misled.
What's up, guys? Spenny. Let me give you my take on the Pipebomber for the 1000th time. This is a terrorist. This is a literal terrorist who was engaging on January 6th to try and create a very dangerous environment at the United States Capitol. I am 100% in favor of this literal terrorist being arrested and charged and thrown in prison for the rest of his or her life. This terrorist actually created the conditions for thousands of innocent Americans who went to a rally at the U.S. Capitol that descended into a riot to have their lives ruined. And were it not for the 2024 election victory, thousands of my countrymen, members of my political movement, the America First movement, would be in jail, suffering and possibly dying in prison for simply attending a rally. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened with this pipe bomb was that the pipe bomber placed pipe bombs, depending on how much you believe about the stories. How could a 60-second timer be set the night before? It doesn't make any sense. How could it was all found, all the bombs were found. Are the actual real bombs? I don't know, but they were found moments before the actual rally descended into a riot at the U.S. Capitol at the worst possible time, drawing away resources, blah, blah, blah. The point is that this is clearly an op, okay? And this is what I firmly believe, having done thousands of hours of interviews of firsthand witnesses, the Capitol Hill police officer, everyone from Bongino to FBI agents who witnessed and were working this case. Like, all of it have been on my show. Members of Congress, senators, they've all been on my show, and that's the conclusion I've come to. That this individual was working for a Fed op in order to try and create a distraction mechanism and in order to try and frame MAGA as a terrorist organization. I know MAGA well. I've been to thousands of MAGA rallies. We are not terrorists. We are actually the only people keeping this country together. And so it's something, and we keep it together through peaceful means, debate, and organizing in peaceful means. This is not MAGA. This is the activity of the left or the deep state, trying to bomb, kill, scare, terrorize us into, hoaxes and psyops. So that's my full take. Sorry to get all that off my chest, because there's been a lot made of the pipe bomber over the past couple of days and weeks. There's been a lot made because the FBI released brand new footage. Here's some new footage, for instance. And also because there have been new reports from the Blaze allegedly identifying a suspect that could have been the pipe bomber. There's also been now whistleblower testimony from Thomas Massie saying that he's got a whistleblower saying that there's a massive ongoing cover-up at the FBI. And that potentially there might be some type of unwarranted retaliation against the whistleblowers at the FBI. This is what Thomas Massie is out with over the last 24 hours. Well, this morning we finally got the long-awaited Dan Bongino response on the pipe bomber, and it absolutely comes with receipts, and it's worth going through entirely. I want to begin by saying I don't have a dog in this fight. You can argue it out in the comment sections. I have tried my level-headed best to be as honest on this channel, to bring as much information forward. I am not pushing one direction or the other. I obviously do not trust federal sources. I do believe that there is a major cover-up here, but I am going to look at all of the available evidence, clear-eyed, present it to you, and allow you to do the same. I trust you. A lot of creators don't trust their audiences. I trust you to make informed opinions given the available evidence. And so here's what Dan Bongino says this morning. Congressman Massie responds to the congressman and includes screenshots of phone calls to the congressman. And here's why. Director Patel and I entered the duty of our leadership position at the FBI. We had our hands full. We were happy to be part of the president's team, and we still are. Despite the multitude of challenges we faced, one of our first initiatives was to aggressively pursue a new strategy to investigate the January 6th pipe bomb terror attack. We brought in new personnel to take a look at the case. We flew in police officers who were detectives working on the task force that day to review the FBI work, and we conducted multiple internal reviews, held countless in-person meetings with the investigative team members, and we dramatically increased investigative resources. We increased the public award for information in the case that is now at $500,000 to utilize crowdsourcing leads. This is only a small sample of the work that the FBI personnel and leadership team have put into this critical investigation. When I spoke with you about this yesterday, a little after 8 a.m., screenshot attached, I offered you an in-person brief on our work, and we spoke for 10 minutes. I called you back after 7:30 p.m., so the whole day went by, 12 hours go by, and again made the offer. You didn't answer, and you have yet to call me back. Despite this, you continue to imply that the director and I are targeting investigators in the case. This is disgusting, even low standards for many politicians, even low by the standards for many politicians. You know my number, and you're free to call any time, but it's easier to tweet and throw BS bombs. Yes, our leadership team will be meeting with the FBI team members today, and we will have available for all of them any whistleblower resources that they need to disclose any evidence or malfeasance for the prior administration. And we will ask about threads that may have gone unpulled under prior leadership because we are passionate about solving this case. But a week of near 24-hour work on recent open source leads in the case has yet to produce a breakthrough, and some in the media are reporting regarding prior persons of interest is grossly inaccurate and serves to mislead the public. This is a real bombshell from Bongino. This is the commenting on the Blaze reporting. Dan Bongino effectively saying that this reporting regarding prior persons of interest, so the Blaze names a suspect, is grossly inaccurate and serves only to mislead the public. Okay, so this is Ben Bongino from his position as deputy director saying that reporting is not accurate. I proudly serve in this administration, and I proudly work with Director Patel to reform, advance the crime fighting and national security missions of the FBI. We would love to have you as a partner in this mission rather than a dog barking behind a fence. Ooh, calls Thomas Massie a dog. So that is the official slamming of Massie for disgusting implications that the FBI is targeting investigators in the pipe bomb case. Here's the thing about Dan. Here's the commentary on this. He's a straight shooter, and he doesn't do games, like at all. But now he's working within a place that's all games and dishonesty. I don't envy him, but I respect the hell out of him. This level of professionalism he shows in the face of the BS is admirable. Thomas Massie is an adult theater kid. I can't wait until he's removed from office. Dan just smoked Representative Massie. I'm not thrilled about the speed of the prosecution. I will always maintain that Dan Bongino is a man of extreme integrity, genuinely wants to, and is trying to fix the system. Don't forget, he gave up a very lucrative career to head the FBI. Owned by lying grandstanding Thomas Massie with receipts. Dude is a joke. So this is Julie Kelly saying, in other words, there's no evidence that supports the claims made by Steve Baker and the Blaze related to the identity of the J6 pipe bomb suspect, but Massie is too focused on his Get Trump mission to act responsibly and cautiously. Bongino scorching Thomas Massie. I'll say this, President Trump is obviously at a war with Thomas Massie. He's endorsed against him and wants to see him out of Congress. But, and so there's got to be some animus that's built up there. I'm not saying that Dan Bongino is perfect, but his depiction of Massie and libertarians at large is absolutely spot on. We'd love to have you as a partner instead of barking behind a fence. This is something that is clearly been something Dan Bongino's thought about for a while. You can see old clips of him here talking about Thomas Massie, saying that he's been amazing on the J6 pipe bomber case, but that he's wrong in specific respects to his new discoveries. This is from back when Dan was on his show. And Dan Bongino saying about 2 months ago that we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. We were told this was an insurrection. I'm confident that we're closing in on some suspects. Anyway, we've done our level-headed best to ask true and logical questions of those who were around on that day. We've tried our hardest to be fair to all involved here that are trying to get to in a good faith effort, trying to get to an answer as to what happened. The J6 pipe bomber is the key to everything, and we need to know the answer. Now, obviously, I think that it's good to motivate law enforcement and to have an explanation as quickly as possible to the American people. And so I don't know the answers here. I do know that there's probably some vindictiveness when it comes to Thomas Massie. He's upset about a lot of things that are going on in the administration. He's upset about not getting the support of the administration. He fights the administration, votes against the administration all the time. And has just become one of those guys. And it's sad to see that, honestly. He has a lot of principled stances, but that's just something in this environment that I cannot tolerate. There's too much on the line for the sort of petty theater kid stuff.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. There's like 30 seconds left in this video. Now, I'm baffled too. Because, the information that the Blaze gave on this, I don't understand why you're talking about Glenn Beck here would make shit up and throw it out there. I mean, they said it was like a 96 to 98% match on forensic identity matching. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have been in there for 9-10 months now? And this was something that Dan Bongino was hot on. I mean, he was fired up about this on his radio his radio program and also his podcast. I mean, he talked about this and how he couldn't understand why they couldn't identify this person. Using a cell phone. They've got cell phone tracking capabilities. All right, it could have been a throwaway phone, but they had to pick the phone up somewhere and turn it on, have it activated, And even when you don't have your phone on, it can still be tracked. Okay? So why they don't have more information on this that they're not releasing, I don't understand. I really don't. Let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this does come from Benny Johnson. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Devory Darkin says about Newsom suffers major setback after Trump revokes 17,000 commercial driver's license. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Let's go ahead and click on this and see what Devory has to say.
Thursday, so much has happened this week, of course, from the economy to the government shutdown to Epstein. And this is the type of week that I would say, after, doing this for every single day, literally for at least a year so far, where it's a lot of stories that are really annoying. Just being transparent with you guys, of course. And it gets away from the real issues impacting everyday Americans. So the good news is, in this show, we get to kind of circle back on that. So Gavin Newsom has suffered another major blow. Department of Transportation is revoking 17,000 commercial driver's licenses that they issued to non-citizens. So that's huge news, I would say. Also, more fallout from the government shutdown last night, more reactions, including a couple of topics regarding affordability and home ownership and the overall economy. We will get into that as well. But if you are new here, this is all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. We go live 1 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. We also update you guys throughout the day with 2 other, I would say, rapid update videos that you can find on YouTube and sometimes on Rumble. And the reason why you should be tuning in and sharing this stream is because I'm not in the business of telling you what to think. I'm in the business of trying to give you the full picture of what's being reported, what's actually happening, and encouraging you to actually think for yourself. I think there are plenty of people who play to the fringes. I think there are plenty of people who scream into the echo chambers. But there's not a lot of people encouraging you, challenging you to critically think. And so that's what this show is all about. And if you feel that's for you, stick with us here, all right? So where we're going to start first is with Gavin Newsom and this whole debacle. Of course, we know that blood is on his hands, as some may say. We know he's an incompetent governor. I know this personally. I used to live in California. I would say he's destroyed California. That's why he projects a lot, tries to blame everything on the president when really he's talking about himself. Why is it that when you look at the entire nation, California still has high gas prices? Why is it that California is #1 in solar installation on residential homes, but still have the highest electricity prices? That has nothing to do with the president. So we can get into the high-speed rail. We can get into the Capitol building that costs over $1 billion, which is more than the White House ballroom, might I add, that hasn't been finished. They've been working on it for almost a decade now. We can go on and on and on. Homelessness as well. This guy is a complete failure. The problem is, a lot of voters out there see his face and they start getting googly eyes as if he hasn't done anything wrong. These are the people we can't help. But the people who are open-minded, we can help them by giving them this new update regarding these commercial driver's licenses. Let's go ahead and play that now.
The Transportation Department is cracking down on California over issuing commercial driver's licenses to non-citizens. So this comes as the illegal migrant trucker accused in last month's fatal car crash in Florida is due in court for a hearing in the case. And William LaJeunesse is live in L.A. with more, as Singh is his name, is going to be in court today. William?
Yeah, he's in court in Florida. We have another trucking fatality individual in court here in California today for that accident last month that killed 3 people. But experts say right now the trucking industry is a mess, with diploma mills graduating unqualified drivers and hundreds of thousands of undocumented drivers who improperly or illegally obtained their license. Yesterday, Transportation Secretary Duffy said California had to cancel 17,000 CDLs to, quote, dangerous foreign drivers. The state says the Biden administration had allowed it to have asylum seekers with work permits drive big rigs. Duffy said the law never allowed that and forced the recall.
Yeah, so did you guys hear that? So it's the policies on the record. This is why your vote does matter. This is why your voice matters. Because when you have people shaping policy, especially these people who spend all their day in an office and never get out and actually touch grass or speak to real people, they come up with these fascinating ideas about what's going to work for our communities, our neighborhoods, our cities, our states. And it's only when the people start to become aware, start to educate themselves, start to push back, show up at these meetings and start voicing, they might reconsider. Now, obviously, if you live in California, you can scream until you're blue in the face. Nothing's going to change. It's a super majority, okay? They pass pieces of legislation without the input of the people. Now, obviously, I guess the people did have some level of input because these people have been elected, but I digress. Point being here is that 17,000 out of 65,000, okay, in case you guys are wondering what the total number is a good start. All right, this is a good start, and it's already affected the policy at the state level for California. And they now have warnings on their website saying they cannot authorize certain commercial driver's license anymore. So it was under the Biden administration where no rules really applied. It was a free-for-all. And remember, Joe Biden at his core is not a progressive, okay? That's not who he is. But it's progressives that hijacked his administration. So imagine if it was a president who truly believed in these progressive policies, who truly believed in no restrictions, just free for all. Who cares? We don't know who's going to pay for it. Oh yeah, the billionaires will pay for it. Sure they will. Yeah, they'll just go somewhere else. We know. All right, let's hear more to this story, and then we're going to show you more to the story here.
I feel very confident that if we're able to take out the unlawful, untrained, non-English speaking drivers, we will not have an issue on our roadways.
He's also enforcing an old rule that if drivers can't understand English, like Harjinder Singh, you see here, he allegedly killed 3 in Florida, police can impound that truck during any inspection anywhere. Florida is suing California for giving him a license despite failing his test 10 times.
It isn't necessarily about immigration, it's about safety and enforcement of the standards that exist today.
So 6 states, Duffy says, improperly issued CDLs to non-citizens, many after attending so-called CDL mills that graduate students who can't speak English or understand rules of the road.
I want to make this perfectly clear to the driver training schools. If you are not following the rules and you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, we're going to ensure that we put you out of business.
So bottom line, about 17,000, they say, is just the tip of the iceberg. There are upwards of 200,000 undocumented truckers who could lose their license.
Now, what would be the pushback to this? Okay, let's exercise critical thinking here. One side is going to say, hey, you're going to hurt the economy. You're going to hurt people who are just trying to provide for their family. You see, what is the saying when it comes to success? The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're going to relax the laws here and the standards when it comes to this, what else will you do as well in other parts of governing, right? It goes back to what I just said about the Biden administration. There literally was no enforcement on anything. But they say that's trying to make this country better. They believe that's actually helping their constituents, which we know is completely false. Let's take a look at this number. I think this is interesting. Department of Homeland Security acknowledges a 50 million foreign-born population, specifically 53.312 million, while reporting Trump has caused a net decline of 2.2 million foreigners through self-deportations and forced deportations. Let me scroll down so you guys can see the graphic. That is just fascinating. It's terrible. And listen, I don't have a problem with someone trying to immigrate to this country. I just think, like anything else in life, we should be vetting these people. Let's go to the story that I have pinned on my X to make my point here. A story you might just be interested in. Just imagine you owned a 5,000 square foot home on 10 acres of land. And one day a stranger knocks on your door who is seeking to live on this property so they can have a better future. You vet the person, you make sure they are a good candidate. Eventually, you give them a 1/4 acre of land on your property. This continues as more and more people show up and you vet them as you did the first person. However, one day you notice a stranger jumping the fence to your property and declining to claim or deciding to claim a piece of your land for a better future. You did not vet them. They didn't ask. Essentially, they jumped the line and now they are trespassing. The people who you approved are disgusted at this behavior, but your family tell you it's okay. Just be compassionate. Let them stay. Okay, they're trying to have a better life. Then the next day, more strangers start jumping the fence because the word gets out. You still keep to your compassionate outlook. Okay. However, after failing to vet the individuals who jumped your fence, eventually one of them assaults your children, even attempts to rob your house. You're stunned. You couldn't believe that this would happen to you. You thought you were doing a good deed, but the mistake you made was you forgot about law and order. There's a reason why you vetted the first stranger for this reason alone. Your safety, your family's safety. At this point, you have strangers committing crimes against your family on your land and other strangers draining your electricity, water, and gas. You have a decision to make. You can identify the ones who jumped your fence and kick them out of your property, or you can continue to do the things that got your children assaulted in the first place. The bottom line to the story is what? Decisions have consequences. When millions of unvetted people cross our border illegally, that was an extreme decision from the Biden administration, which triggers an extreme response from the Trump administration. It's called cause and effect. So the next time you see Democrats crying about ICE doing their job, that they are authorized to do thanks to Congress, don't let your compassion blind you from exercising discernment surrounding law and order in our country. One murder, one crime, one assault, one robbery is too much, especially when it's from an illegal alien. Standards must be set high if we are to maintain our order, strength, and greatness as a country. When leaders make weak decisions, it's the subordinates who suffer. I do not feel so sorry for the people who crossed the border illegally. I do feel compassion for those who follow the law and did it the right way, and the American citizens who continue to be negatively impacted by this terrible decision from the Biden administration. So I think that's the summary here, guys. I think that's really what it's all about. It's about the safety. It's about the standards in our country. We need them to be enforced again. Does that mean ICE, DHS, the Trump administration is always going to do the right thing or the perfect thing? They will make mistakes. In some case, they may go too far. But I'd rather hear someone going too far than not going at all. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'd rather hear somebody going a little too far than not doing anything at all. Because if you don't do anything at all, that's the worst thing. What is failure? Failure only happens when you quit, not when you try. So I commend the Department of Transportation for doing the right thing. They need to revoke these licenses immediately. And it's not just in California. I'm sure there are other states as well.
Yes, there are. I mean, didn't he say 200,000 licenses, illegal licenses throughout the United States? Unbelievable. 65,000 just in California. Now, okay, truck driving may not be the ideal job for a lot of people, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to, American citizens, that would like to drive trucks, especially some of the money they make. I mean, they make like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That's a pretty good payroll. But, you know, if you got illegals, I don't know what they're paying them. But if you got illegals driving the trucks, you certainly don't need Americans driving them. All right, let's jump over here and show you that this video does come from Devoy Darkins. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here, and let me remind you folks that these videos that I shared with you come directly from the producers' channels. I have the links to the videos themselves as well as the links to the channels of the producers. I'm going to go ahead and copy the comments here, or the chats, into a comment. There we go. Let me scroll down here. Put that in a comment and make that permanent, because as you know, when this live stream is over, those live chats just kind of disappear into hyperspace. And since we've got a few minutes left, let's just jump back over here to Murtech.com and let's see what Wendy Bell has to say. Okay? I know some people like to listen to Wendy Bell, so Let's check her out and see what's going on.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program. You know, I was a little alarmed when I heard that Senator Fetterman had fallen and had gotten pretty badly banged up. And, you know, I feel badly about this, but I immediately thought that somebody had hurt him or there was some funny business. Isn't it amazing what you begin to think of? The more you know, the more educated you are, the more you remember what these people in the world have done to you, right? I immediately started thinking bad things, and I was like, okay, stop, slow it down. And I went online, and I got this from the BBC, if you can believe them. I don't know if they selectively edited this, but we're going to give it a whirl, jerks. U.S. Senator John Fetterman jokes from the hospital after a fall caused by a heartbeat flare-up. He's under observation here in Pittsburgh, was at least, in a hospital. I don't know if he still is, probably. He fell and injured his face following an irregular heartbeat flare-up. A 56-year-old taken to the hospital in Pittsburgh. His team said he's now doing well, but he remains under observation. I would imagine being sick, it sucks to fall as a grown-up no matter how you slice it, but to be that size, it probably, and to hit your face, that is not good. If you thought my face looked bad before, he said, wait till you see it now. The senator joked in a statement released by an office spokesperson. He's just seeming like the affable guy who everybody's getting behind, unless you're, of course, on blue sky. Well, I want to first, before we get to the negative, I'm going to give you the positive, because the positive comes from MAGA. MAGA supporters rally around Fetterman after Senator's fall sends him to the hospital. MAGA social media accounts praise Democratic Senator's sanity and authenticity following this medical incident. Well wishes poured in from the MAGA movement Thursday as the news broke that John Fetterman had fallen outside his home. His office said he was taken hospital during morning walk, sustained a fall near his home in Braddock. Upon evaluation, it was established he had a ventricular fibrillation flare-up that led to the senator feeling lightheaded, falling to the ground, and hitting his face. Minor injuries. We are rooting for you to make a full comeback. Eric Daughtry, Florida conservative news personality, said in a comment on Fetterman's post, saying, if you think my face was bad before, it's worse now. Somebody called Magical Trevor, a right-leaning X account with 41,000 followers, also replied, damn dude, take care of yourself. We don't agree, but I respect the hell out of you. I identify as MAGA, and we don't agree with you on most policies, said somebody else. I do appreciate your unwavering support for Israel and your priority to putting our country first during the shutdown. I pray for a quick recovery, and I send prayers and healing thoughts to you and your family at this time. Kathy Schroeder, another self-described MAGA voter, echoed the sentiment. Lord God, protect Senator Fetterman. He brings sanity and authenticity to the Democrat Party, and we need him. If you thought my face looked bad before, you got to love it. Wait until you see it now. Okay. Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. I didn't hear anybody making fun of John Fetterman. Not in my circles. I consider myself a MAGA, Make America Great Again, conservative mom. I embrace those values. I've never heard anybody mock John Fetterman for his stroke, how he communicates after it, or anything. However, if you're a Democrat over on Blue Sky, well, it's a little bit different. It's an absolute cesspool in the wake of the news about John Fetterman's fall. Let me put on my eyes and I'll read a few. One guy says, damn, I hope the pavement is okay. Another person says Fetterman needs to quit his job and focus on his health. Another person says, let's see, Fetterman back in the hospital after claiming he fell. Liar. He spent a week doing a book tour. It wiped him out. He's not able to do his job. Says a woman whose name on Blue Sky is Mary, mother of Jesus. That's wild. Somebody else says Fetterman suffers injuries to his face from fall, hospitalized tragically. He's expected to live. Somebody else, karma's a bitch, isn't it, Fetterman? Looks like he's not getting enough oxygen to his brain. I could have told you that. Huh. Fetterman is hospitalized from a fall. He's in AFib, karma bitch. Right? Can you imagine? You know, I don't think that that's something that you learn at home. You don't follow in your parents' footsteps, I don't believe. That's learned somewhere. But it's not passed down in the generations, I don't think. Can you imagine? And so it had us thinking about when he was on with Dana Bash yesterday on CNN, and he was talking about basically his book. Yes, is he doing a book tour? I suppose. Whatever. Good luck. But he said the one thing that Dana Bash said, the one thing that surprised him, or her, was that Fetterman said the ugly, hate, evil, dark, I hope you die comments come from the left, and they come from Blue Sky, which is the progressive branch of Twitter, right? It's their own iteration of it. I don't think there's even a question of where we are in this country. And you know what? As I implore Congress to work together at the Capitol, because that is the job that they have been given, that is the job that they have the honor of fulfilling, and it should be temporary, right? How do you communicate with people? How do you cooperate with people who legitimately might look at you and wish that you would die? Do you wish that on anybody? Because I can tell you right now, if I was like my 61-year-old friend and I suffered a stroke that wiped me out and I never spoke again, there would be triumphant cheers in my neighborhood, on my street. And there's a difference. So well wishes to the senator from Pennsylvania. We hope that you are well, Senator Fetterman. So what I want to talk about coming up, there is no oxygen floating around out there, not even where I am at 30,000 feet, because all the Democrat Party has, all the deep state has, is Jeffrey Epstein. And there's a very clear reason why President Trump says, are we still talking about that guy? Didn't he die like 6 years ago? There's a reason why, and it's not a cover-up. It's because he knows it is a smokescreen. He knows it is a distraction. And he knows that the left is trying to use death by innuendo. That's what they're trying to do to the president, connecting him to Jeffrey Epstein. The ridiculosity of it, next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, but great information, and I will be sharing the rest of Wendy's video in my daily news wrap-up. But before we close this out, I do want to give you some information from the Wellness Clinic.
Conspiracy theories were right again. A new study by Korean doctors claimed that COVID vaccines raise the risk of 6 cancers. Researchers analyzed health records from more than 8.4 million adults between 2021 and 2023, and their findings were published in Biomarker Research, a respected scientific journal.
The data raises concern that the man-made spike protein exposure may be tied to long-term health risks. Dr. Peter McCullough collaborated with the wellness company to create Ultimate Spike Detox, designed to help your body clear spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support heart health.
With natural ingredients like nattokinase, nattokinase, dandelion root, and bromelain bromelain, it is your daily proactive defense from a man-made virus.
Don't wait until symptoms strike or something unexpected happens. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Sekulow, one of the top doctors who risked it all. Scan this QR code or head to twc.health/rumble and use code RUMBLE to get 10% off every order.
All right, folks, there you have it. So, let me see what's going on here with, let me check this out. Hang on, I'm going to go to my playlist. Give me a second to access that. Here we go. As I said, we're going to continue on with Wendy Bell's Radio in my daily news wrap-up. Also have some information from Just the News, Rubin Report, also from Dr. Steve Turley. Got a couple of videos from him. Actually been a pretty busy day. Chicks on the right, X22 report, Barry Cunningham. So we've got a full lineup scheduled for our daily news wrap-up. I'm going to add a couple of more videos in there for just because it's some good stuff. I'll be back about 9:30, so go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30 to give me some time to get my playlist updated some more and to set up my Rumble studio. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for the time you spent with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.